Jesus always seems to meet us where we are, whether we realize it or not. It's a holy mystery that Jesus meets us at all. How Jesus meets us is hard to articulate. It's a feeling, a sense, occasionally a woo-woo moment. This happens throughout our lifetimes, whether we are children or young adults, middle-aged, or extremely wise and advanced in years. Have you ever spent time around a 4-year-old child? Who spent a lot of time with a 4-year-old? For the year before going to seminary, I taught 4-year-olds, and I loved it. There's something about being 4 that compels a child to ask questions about God, whether they've been exposed to religion or not. 4 is a magical age, when wonder, imagination, and big questions loom. If you've spent time with a child this age, you've probably heard a cascade of why, followed by, but why, again and again. At this stage, children's minds and hearts are expanding. They're starting to grasp abstract ideas and think beyond the visible world. Things like dinosaurs, space, God, the soul, heaven. The mysterious draws them in. And their imaginations are vivid. Spiritual stories speak to them much like fairy tales do. They're not curious only about how things work, but they want to know why things exist. They are searching for meaning, connection, and purpose. Preschoolers are tuned in to emotion and awe. They may be moved by beauty or kindness, even if they can't explain it. And they often feel a deep pull toward the mystery of communion, longing to eat the bread like their parents. Now, being 4 might feel far away for some of us, but I hope this stirs a memory of your own early wondering about mystery. How did Jesus meet you when you were a child? My strongest memory from this time in my life is attending church every Sunday with my family. My parents, my younger brother, and I, we always sat in the 5th pew back on the left-hand side, right in front of the pulpit. It was our pew. I don't remember anything about the preaching or lessons from scriptures, but what I do remember is this. I remember watching the priest stand behind the altar and presiding over the Eucharist. It was my favorite time of the whole week. And I loved going forward to the rail, kneeling between my parents and receiving communion. I don't remember what I thought about this act. Did I have a theology of the Eucharist at 4 years old? Probably not. But I knew that I was participating in something larger than myself, something mysterious that connected me to Jesus. A manual act that enabled Jesus to meet me where I was as a small child. In today's gospel, Jesus meets the disciples where they are, by the Sea of Tiberias. Jesus' death and resurrection happened recently, and they are still reeling. This is the 3rd time that the post-resurrection Jesus appears to them. The text says, just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. It makes you wonder what he looked like if they didn't recognize him. Have you ever wondered about what the post-resurrection Jesus looked like? Yeah. Did he appear as a ghost? In some appearances like this one, Jesus is not recognizable. However, Jesus was recognized by his disciples in other instances, such as the chapter before in John 20, when he shows them his hands and his side. He clearly had a body that was transformed in some way. These accounts indicate that while Jesus' resurrected body was physical and could be touched, it also had a glorified aspect that transcended normal physical limitations as he could appear and disappear at will. The post-resurrection Jesus embodied both continuity with his earthly life and a transformed, glorified existence, demonstrating the power of the resurrection. The resurrected Jesus meets the disciples where they are, both physically and spiritually. He helps them process their grief and continues to work miracles. Jesus helps their unbelief when he causes them to haul in more fish than they had ever seen before. And as he shares a meal with them on the beach, eating fish cooked over a charcoal fire. Now, there is only one other place in all of Scripture in which a charcoal fire appears. And that's just a few chapters earlier in John's Gospel. And Peter was warming himself beside that fire too. But the situation was entirely different. The first charcoal fire took place outside Caiaphas' house after Jesus had been arrested. Caiaphas was interrogating Jesus, while Peter waited outside the gate along with a guard and the police. And the woman guarding the gate asked Peter if he's a disciple of Jesus, and he denies it 3 times. It's fascinating that the next time a charcoal fire appears, Jesus has died and he has risen. And now he's standing before Peter and they're having breakfast together on the beach. Jesus teaches us about love. And this interaction he has with Peter on the banks of the sea, Jesus meets Peter where he is. And the love between Jesus and Peter is a love that seeks to reconcile a broken relationship. They are reuniting after that fateful day when they last saw one another outside of Caiaphas' house by the charcoal fire when Peter denied Jesus. So in this conversation on the beach, we hear Jesus ask Peter, "Son of John, do you love me?" To which Peter answers, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And Jesus says, "Tend my sheep." And a second time, Jesus turns to Peter and asks, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter responds, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus says, "Tend my sheep." And a third time, Jesus turns to Peter and asks, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter is hurt. He says, "Lord, you know everything. You know I love you." And Jesus replies, "Feed my sheep." If we pull apart this conversation, we see that Jesus and Peter are talking past one another. It's a really confusing conversation, but a little less confusing in the original Greek. And as someone pointed out at 8:45, they weren't even speaking Greek. So we have a lot of languages going on here, but we're going to look at the Greek that we do have. And in the Greek text of the gospel, the word love appears 7 times. But in the Greek, there are 2 different words being used for love. We have agape love, which is what Jesus is asking Peter about, and agape love is the pure, divine, unconditional love. And Peter keeps responding with phileo love, which is the love between brothers or friends. So Jesus asks, "Peter, do you love me?" expressing agape love, the kind of love that is the closest thing to the love of God we can imagine. And Peter responds, "Yes, I love you," using philia, the love of brothers or friends. Again, Jesus asks with agape. Again, Peter responds with philia. And finally, Jesus asks a 3rd time, but this time, Jesus asks Peter if he loves him using the word philia, as a brother? To which Peter says, yes, I do. No matter what language this conversation is happening in, Aramaic or Greek or English, it's strange. I mean, why does Jesus ask Peter the same question two different ways? Why does Jesus reply in the affirmative with a completely different kind of love? Where is Peter in this story? Is he feeling guilty about denying Jesus? Is he feeling shame or embarrassment? Is this way his way? Is this Peter's way of reconciling with Jesus in a self-deprecating manner? Peter is unsure and settles into a place of mystery. I continue to have so many questions about this exchange. I mean, picture it in your mind. During the conversation, is the resurrected Jesus smiling and emanating compassion for Peter? Or is he stern and chastising? However it transpired, Jesus meets Peter where he is, just as God meets us where we are. And that is one of the paradoxes of love, and it is a holy mystery. The love that transcends all of these loves is agape, and as represented by Jesus, that is the love that always comes from God, adjusting when necessary to meet us where we are. And Jesus meets you where you are too. Just as he met Peter by the sea. And whether we are full of questions, like a 4-year-old seeking understanding and connection, or carrying the weight of past denials and seeking reconciliation, whatever it is, Jesus is present with us. His love, expressed in both agape and phileo, transcends our human limitations and meets us in our particular circumstances. Jesus meets us with unconditional love always. And Jesus' unconditional love is not dependent on our understanding or our worthiness. It is a gift freely given, inviting us into a deeper relationship with God. As we leave today, let us carry with us the assurance that Jesus meets us in our joy. And Jesus meets us in our doubts and in our failures, always ready to guide us toward love and reconciliation. May we be open to recognizing these moments of divine encounter in our own lives, trusting that Jesus is ever present, meeting us exactly where we are.